Greetings and salutations, and welcome all to
Talking Who.
I'm Sean Harry.
I'm Elisar Cabrera.
And this is the one place in the internet, although those guys at Gallifrey 1 convention don't know, but everybody else does. This is the one place on the internet to find live talking about the latest episodes, DVDs, missing episodes, new companions, all the gossip about Doctor Who.
Hey, and if you're out there, you're a big fan of Doctor Who.
Yes.
You've got no one to talk to about it because none of your family or friends. You just tune in with us.
Yes.
We're just the guys to chat with.
We're just two geeks sat down talking about Doctor Who for an hour and going on about what the latest news is. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, Sean Harry, at Sean Harry, and then Elisar at Elicab.
And of course, at Talking Who as our main Twitter account.
Yes, you can follow us on Talking Who and any number of other places. We're all over the internet.
YouTube.com/Those Video Guys TV.
Yeah.
You're on that page now if you're watching us. Hit that subscribe button at the top. Subscribe, please, to the channel.
And like us.
Indeed. Talkingwho.blogspot.com. That's our blog and feed where you can get all the latest previews about what's coming up on the show as well as links to the episodes themselves. Facebook.com/Those Video Guys. That's wrong on there. I've got to change that.
Well, you're the one who did it.
Twitter.com/Talking Who. Blip.tv Talking Who. Now, Blip TV, we have short bite-sized episodes of Talking Who, which is basically our archive episodes where if you don't have time to watch the whole episode just to watch one review of something, you can just go to Blip TV /Talking Who and go straight to that review and just watch that. And gplus.to/Talk Who. And if you search on iTunes for Doctor Who Talking Who, you will also find our bite-sized episodes as well. So that's the housekeeping underway. Guys, you can tweet us during the show. We've got
and we will check our tweets.
Hashtag Talking Who as well. And so get your tweets in. We want to know your thoughts on the new companion.
Yeah.
But we also want to know, what is your favourite story featuring a god, devil, mythological beast type of creature? Because that's the theme of this week's episode. But we'll come to the theme later on because we're going to start kicking off by talking about Jenna-Louise Coleman.
Yes, the new companion. Actually, just quickly, just to veer off onto a different point, I thought it was a prime example of the BBC show what a huge mistake they had made over cancelling Doctor Who Confidential.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically what this week they could have done is done a Doctor Who Confidential on Doctor Who Companions, a bit like when they announced Matt Smith, and it could have been a Doctor Who Confidential in which they could have had chats with, Sophie Aldridge and Karen Gillan and Billy Piper.
But not Janet Fielding, because she would just say it was shit.
She would just say it's sexist rubbish and you should cancel it now.
Don't do it.
And it's all it is you're climbing up a rope in high heels and long nails or something. But anyway, you could have done a Doctor Who Confidential, and halfway through they could have revealed who the new companion was, and it would have got a couple of million ratings for a rather inexpensive but quality show. You know, the BBC in their wisdom have chosen to remove Doctor Who Confidential.
Indeed.
But anyway, so about this new lady, Miss Coleman.
Miss Coleman. Now, people are wondering why reveal it now? Because obviously we're months and months away. We won't see her until Christmas.
There's two very obvious reasons. The first is that Titanic is on this weekend.
Yeah.
Of which she is a star. And one of the stars. So obviously when there's all this Titanic mania and people are watching, that's actually good publicity for the BBC for the new show. People will be watching that, and if they like her, they go, we can go watch her in Doctor Who. The other, of course, reason would be is that whenever they're filming, doing location filming, you've got paparazzi around, you've got fans with their cameras, and paparazzi will be selling their pictures to the Sun, and the fans will be selling it to Gallifrey 1 and places like that. So the BBC like to be in control. They kept it secret when they were going to launch the new Dalek, and they kept it secret. And then the Sun printed a big picture of it. So since then, the BBC have always tried to realise you can't sometimes leave it till the episode itself. So they like to control the way it's revealed, the way the information comes out.
Indeed, yeah.
And it helps create hype and interest.
It's hype,
if you say, on Wednesday we will announce the new companion or the new Doctor or what the new monsters will be, and that generates excitement and interest.
Of course, indeed. Now, I mean, I can't comment on Jenna-Louise's...
She looks cute.
She looks
a bit orange.
Very pretty.
She looks like she's used a lot of bottle tan.
I mean,
but
another pretty girl. You know, there's...
Do you know what I would have loved to have seen? And, you know, I'm sure that when it came to the audition, that was basically what won out. And they're saying that as an actress, she actually ran rings around Matt Smith, they're complaining. So she sounds like this energetic young girl. I would have loved to have seen an Indian or an Asian actress or actor in the role. I mean, Doctor Who's had how many seasons? 30-odd seasons. And during that entire time, it's been nearly a white Anglo-Saxon cast. We've basically had 2 black faces in the TARDIS. With Ricky Smith and Martha Jones, and it would be nice to have a bit more colour in the TARDIS. It'd be nice to see, you know, an Asian actress or an Indian actor or something like that, or, you know, an African actor. You know, it would be nice to see a bit more. Britain has become, since Doctor Who started, such
very diverse,
probably more than almost any other country. Thanks to whatever you may think of it, thanks very much to the Empire and our associations with Europe and with India and the Orient, our associations with America. We're a very, very diverse culture, and it would be very nice, I think, if Doctor Who represented that. And I would love to see, you know, maybe an Indian, and we've got a huge Indian community in England.
Yeah.
And every Indian mum wants their son to become a doctor,
not
necessarily the doctor. And it would be nice to see an Indian companion or maybe an Asian companion.
Well, I mean, I'm actually hoping that they've announced it for the Christmas one, but
yes,
you know, we know Stephen Moffat likes the male-female companion.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about what will happen after Christmas, and I have a feeling there will be probably. I'm sure there'll be another companion.
Do you know, one of the big hits,
and that's going to be the surprise.
One of the big hits with Matt Smith's other companion, Amy Pond, Karen Gillan, was of course the short skirt. So maybe to complement that, not with her, but maybe we'll have another Jamie McCrimmon.
Why not?
Yes.
Why not? Indeed.
And that was kind of funny. I tweeted as soon as it was announced, the new companion. I said she started on Emmerdale and then went to Doctor Who, which is the reverse of Jamie McCrimmon. And then, like 5 minutes later, guess what Fraser Hines tweets? Exactly. Fraser Hines, you stole my joke.
Cylon6 says, I agree that they had to reveal the new companion as she starts filming in May, and they wanted it out before then, but it'll help ITV more, as some Who fans will now watch Titanic just to see her. Yeah,
but Titanic's going to get huge ratings anyway. And I think there's a kind of sensibility in the production and the way it's done to Downton Abbey. But I wouldn't be surprised if every Doctor Who fan watches Downton Abbey, and this from the makers of Downton Abbey and the writer. And I was planning on watching Titanic anyway, because you know it's going to be quality TV.
Yeah.
But suddenly it turns Titanic into a big advert for Doctor Who.
Indeed, and I mean it's good that she's in Titanic, because I've not seen Emmerdale, I've not seen Waterloo Road, I've got nothing.
Actually, I've got to say, Emmerdale and Waterloo Road are the complete opposite. They're shows that if you're a fan of Doctor Who, I can almost guarantee you won't.
Well, exactly.
Be watching, except if you wanted to see Fraser Hines.
We've got nothing to judge her. I mean, I don't even remember her in Captain America. I'm sure it was probably quite a small role. Was she one of the singing girls or something? Who knows? She's got a character name, Connie. Oh, so she probably had some lines. Yeah. I don't know. I absolutely don't know. But at least with Titanic, she's not going to be in Titanic unless she's a good actress.
But it is interesting
because this is a big show for ITV.
We've actually gone with the previous companions of one or two extremes. You've had actresses like Freema Agyeman and Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill, who basically are complete unknowns. I mean, they've got they had very little professional experience as actors, and this was the role that put them on the map. But on the flip side, you then had Billy Piper, and you had Catherine Tate, who are on the complete opposite ends of the spectrums, who were very established stars. And what we have here with Miss Coleman is an actress who's not established, is not famous, but she's certainly been working. She's not been out of work for a good how many years? So she's obviously a solid actress to be getting all this work, but she's not somebody that's on anybody's radar. So for a lot of people, it's going to be until Titanic airs, and then until Doctor Who. That's what's going to put her very much on the map. But she is somebody that is not like, we say, when Karen Gillan joined or when Freema Agyeman joined, and you went, can they act? Are they going to be able to do anything? What's their experience? With this companion, you've got a companion who we don't really know, but at least we know she has been doing stuff.
And of course, the other thing to note about this is that we know nothing yet about the character.
Yeah.
You know, we know who's going to be playing this character.
She's going to be very high energy.
Do you think it's? But are we in for another young 21st century spunky young girl?
I think she is going to be. Because I think they came out with a comment that she's more high energy than Matt Smith.
But then, do you think we've got possibly the high energy version of Anissa?
She does look the Nissa, and actually when I heard they
possibly
were
maybe
announce,
an alien, maybe an alien humanoid character or something that's a bit different about her.
Well, when she was announced, I
scientific
thought when they said
Romana-like.
I doubt she'll be Romana-like. I think she'll be more Ace-like. But when they said we're going to announce a new companion, my instant thought was it's got to be a girl of a certain age, because Matt Smith's barely even 70 yet.
Yeah.
And you can't really put a Catherine Tate type with him. And, you know, every time you had Alex Kingston turn up, Alex Kingston could really only turn up for short, sharp jabs with Matt Smith, because you'd see something like that and you think she would take control. You know, she would be the one in charge of the situation. So you've got to very much have companions who are following the Doctor's lead. So it's got to be, you know, a Billie Piper, you know, it's got to be a Rose Tyler or an Amy Pond type. But the comment they said where she's high energy is making me think, you know, it's going to be not so much a Romana, more a Jo Grant or a Ace type companion.
So let's go through the actual at BBC Doctor Who tweets. I want to get started already, says Jenna. I'm a huge fan of the show. Of her favourite companion between Billie Piper and Karen Gillan. Well, that's fairly predictable.
So by fan of the show, she means I started watching it when Christopher Eccleston joined.
Matt Smith did my audition with me. It was fun, and I felt like we were in it together, says Jenna.
That's good, because I always say with the companion, it's down to two things: whether they're an interesting character, and also about their chemistry between them and the Doctor, and the actor playing the Doctor. And I felt that's what really made certain companions like Sophie Aldridge or Elizabeth Sladen, was they were such good friends with the actor playing the Doctor.
Yeah.
Was it really comes off on screen, so you need that kind of chemistry between them.
And then Stephen says, we saw a lot of brilliant actresses, but Jenna was the only person going faster than Matt. He had to keep up.
So that makes me think she's going to be a high energy companion. I think she's going to be an Ace, a Zoe.
We have a tweet from It's Mother who says, at Talking Who, I think, like with every companion, if the writing is brilliant, within minutes we will all love her, and I'm not sure she will be human. So, carrying on the tweets from BBC Doctor Who, there will be 6 episodes this year, including the Christmas special, then 8 next year. Jenna's character will first be seen at the Christmas.
So it's quite a way until we're going to get to see her.
Indeed. Stephen says, Amy and Rory will leave in a final encounter with the Weeping Angels in episode 5. Not everyone gets out alive, and I mean it this time.
I wish Stephen Moffat would stop it with these kind of hints. Because I'll never forget when he said Demon's Run was going to be a game changer, and that episode was awful.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Just let us watch the episode, Stephen.
Jenna has asked us to remind you that she does not have and doesn't plan to have a Twitter account. Beware of imposters. Because there was a Twitter account going around and people were saying this is her.
Can somebody explain this to me? What is this with people? I have enough problems pretending to be me. What is it people want to do a Twitter account pretending to be somebody? I mean, I find that really weird.
And then they'll get the latest issue of Hello that week or OK Magazine, find out what they've said this week and then tweet about it.
No, what I love is, it used to be great when they used to have these fake Facebook accounts, because the only photos they would have would be photographs of them press engagements. There'd be no family shots or photos they'd taken themselves, just pictures of them at the red carpet. Anybody who pretends to be somebody else on Twitter or Facebook, you're sad. You're sad. You're even sadder than the people who are taking legal action against the makers of Mass Effect because they didn't like the ending. It's that level of sadness.
So, on to the new series. Well, we know that there's going to be Daleks and Weeping Angels.
Daleks are back.
But which Daleks?
It's going to be the rubbish Daleks. Teletubby Daleks. Well, from what I understand, from what I've been told, is that now, of course, they've made these Dalek casings are not cheap to make. They're a couple of grand
they have to
each
use them,
to make. And I have no idea why they felt they needed to remake the Daleks when they looked great, and yet they've kept the same Cybermen along when it was established in the old stories that Cybermen changed their look. And plus, we no longer got Cyberus Cybermen, we're back to Mondas Cybermen. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. They should have spent the money on Cybermen. But what I've been told is they kind of know these new Daleks are kind of rubbish. So what it's going to be is those 5 Daleks are going to be the command structure, and the Russell T Davies Daleks will be back as their kind of minions.
The soldiers.
As the soldier Daleks. Which actually I think is a good idea.
It would make sense.
I always liked it in the classic stories when you'd have a Supreme, and which Russell T Davies carried on, when you had a Supreme Dalek
and they had their own look,
an Emperor Dalek, and you'd have different Daleks like the Saucer Dalek or the Scientist Dalek or Imperial Daleks having a different colour scheme and a different kind of look to them. So, and the new Daleks look a lot like the Emperor Dalek from Planet of the Daleks, the John Pertwee story. So having them, and the white Dalek is their leader, and the other 4 are kind of like in charge of different sections, and you'll have the kind of like the gold Russell T Davies Daleks.
Well, but do you think they? But should they come back as the gold Daleks, or should we have, the grey Dalek, the black Dalek with the gold spots?
Well, what will happen if you did that?
The grey Dalek with the blue spots.
All I'm really saying is they're using those casings.
Yeah.
They can spray paint those casings and that's what they used to do in the old days.
Because I think the gold colour got a bit boring after a while.
I have no problem. I mean, the thing I liked about it, they'd taken a classic design, but made it look solid, made it look, sometimes the Daleks could maybe in some episodes, thinking very much of Remembrance of the Dalek, could look a bit shoddy, a bit cheap. A Resurrection of the Daleks, and this. I felt the Russell T Davies one looked fantastic. I really love those ones. The Daleks are my favourite monsters. They're my absolute favourite monsters on Doctor Who. So every time I would be happy to see a Dalek story every season. And last season was, of course, the first year of new Doctor Who in which there wasn't a Dalek story. They only had a cameo
But I
appearance.
think that was necessary.
You have Cylons in every episode of Battlestar Galactica. The Klingons are all... I mean,
that's different.
I have no... And in classic Doctor Who, they brought the Daleks back twice a season for huge long episodes.
But those seasons were very, very long.
Yes, for huge long stories. And it was only because Terry Nation ran off with the rights to them, they actually stopped continuously using them. And I have no issues with at least one... I would have the only...
Even if it means more Daleks in Manhattan?
That's the only bad one you can think of. That's the only bad story you can think of. And I'm going to go. I love a Dalek story every season.
In the YouTube chat room, Barry Aldridge says Dalek Command Team is a great idea. That could be to show that they are higher beings.
Yeah. I like it when they had stuff like... I love Dalek Sec. I thought it was a shame they got rid of him so quickly. I like having... a command structure within the Daleks. So
Phil Cannon just joined the YouTube chat room, says hi all, sorry I'm late. Phil was of course one of the guys we had on our podcasting panel, which was on last week's show and is on our YouTube channel if you haven't seen that. If you're at all into Doctor Who podcasts, if you're interested to know more about them, or you're already a fan of them, or perhaps you're interested in doing your own Doctor Who podcast, watch our Doctor Who podcasting panel episode, get some great tips, but also get to see faces of all those guys that you get to listen to week after week, but you don't necessarily know what they look like.
Now they've announced the Daleks.
And
they've also announced the Weeping Angels. I am also going to make a prediction that I've been given from inside knowledge.
Breaking news.
Or spoiler zone. turn the sound down for a second.
Yes, I think there's the
McCrayon
wants to turn off the sound whenever there's a spoiler. So
well,
you
want this is a potential spoiler. But I've had it confirmed to me from people in the know that the Ice Warriors from Mars will be returning next season.
There you go, folks. That's our Talking Who prediction.
Yes,
Ice
the
Warriors.
Ice Warriors. I've also been told that they are currently working on designs and costings for the Zygons. And depending on how much it costs to do a Zygon, then they may do a Zygon story. That, of course, will probably be towards the end of the season.
There you go. I mean, that's... make of that what you will. I mean,
that's a Sean Harry prediction.
You could research anything, and I suppose if you work out where it's too expensive, it's just an idea. You just chuck the idea. But wow, wouldn't that be great if the Zygons came back?
Well, I'm more excited about the Ice Warriors because they're the last major Doctor Who villain which hasn't. Well, I wouldn't say villain because they turned up. Last major Doctor Who monster that hasn't had been resurrected for the new series. They've been referred to a couple of times, but
Joe Leslie saying that spoilers about the Weeping Angels tuning out for the rest of the podcast just in case. Can I just say it is not, because BBC have got it all over their website, all over their Twitter. It is an official spoiler from the BBC. Yeah. So if you buy next month's Doctor Who magazine, whatever, it's going to be in there anyway. So we haven't spoilt that at all. That is officially been spoiled by the BBC, and therefore you are supposed to know about it.
Yeah.
Which usually also might mean that perhaps they've got another plan. You know, who knows? It's
Weeping Angels. I mean, what I've got to say about the new series, they've done a fantastic job on taking classic Doctor Who monsters and reimagining them for a new generation. And I feel like, you know, today's viewers, as well as viewers of classic Who, have really taken to the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Sontarans, the Autons, the Master. Huge success is the reinterpretation of all of them. However, in terms of new monsters and new villains, the Weeping Angels have been the only real success on a new monster that's really stuck around.
Well, I mean, you can't really call them a monster, but of course there's the Ood as well.
Yeah, I'd say the Ood are actually... I can't like making a mistake there. I think the Ood have been a bit of a success as well. But it's been a bit surprising that which I'm very glad at the success of reinventing and bringing back and resurrecting classic monsters, but I'm a bit disappointed that normally over this length of time in classic Who, you'd have had a whole wealth of new fantastic creatures.
I think this is one of the problems I think of modern technology. Yeah, is that of course a lot of creatures nowadays are CGI creatures.
Actually,
so therefore you get Chicken Monster in the Vincent.
Yes,
Doctor and the Vincent story.
Actually, for me,
the Krillitine and the Krillitine.
For me, the worst, and I couldn't. And for me, I hate it when this happens. Is when with the Slitheen, you have 1 minute it's kind of like a makeup monster for close up, and then suddenly you have a CGI monster, and just the way they move and everything like that, they don't match up.
And I think the CGI will always stop any new creature from ever becoming iconic. Because it's not then physical, it's not real, you can't touch it.
The Weeping Angels are iconic.
And of course the Weeping Angels, but they're not, they are actors.
Yes.
And that makes a difference. Like the Ood are actors, they're latex masks. And that makes a big difference.
Well,
as far as how they relate to them.
There had a couple like the Slitheen, and there was the Jadoon, but I don't really think the Jadoon have really fired the imagination.
Well, Jadoon have only been B-level cast. They're not the main.
Well, I mean, they had one episode down to themselves. What was it? Smith and Jones. And it just really didn't. I felt as a monster, and I almost felt it was like at the time Russell T Davies, like, I want to bring the Sontarans back, but I want to keep the copyright to them myself, kind of thing. So they did this very similar monster, and I just felt they didn't work.
Barry Aldridge in the YouTube chat room says, I hope the Ice Warriors do come back one day.
I can absolutely guarantee you, I would lay money on it now, the Ice Warriors are back this season. Whether it's in the first half or at the back end, but I guarantee you the Ice Warriors will be back.
Cameron Yard Jr. in Twitter says, were you surprised that there were no hints about the 50th anniversary at today's press conference?
Absolutely not, because this season is not the 50th anniversary season.
And I don't think I agree. We're all assuming this is the 50th anniversary season because 8 episodes will be in 2013. But
I think there'll be another season starting around September,
we've got
October
the next
period.
We've got the next season, which will start
And
in the autumn.
And even if and I think I wouldn't be surprised if, as well as the Christmas special, I wouldn't be surprised if on November 23rd, if the BBC don't have an hour-long or 90-minute, like the Christmas one, a kind of like a Doctor Who anniversary special. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a couple of other familiar faces returning.
Creature-wise?
I'm meaning David Tennant.
Right.
Wise. I'd be shocked if David Tennant wasn't back in it. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get Christopher Eccleston. How realistic that proved, I don't know. Beyond that, although...
the news, of course, last week was that Paul McGann was all over the internet saying if he was asked, he would do it.
You want to know something? If you ask any other doctor, they'll say exactly
does that mean that he knows he's not going to be asked?
And that means they haven't been asking anybody at the moment, and it means he could use some work. It's a bit like, what's his name, when Matt Smith quit. Not Matt Smith, when David Tennant... Matt Smith's still in it.
Yes.
So when David Tennant quit, both John Barrowman and John Singh turned out and said, well, now David Tennant's not on it, he was our doctor and we're not coming back. And all of a sudden both those actors said, oh we're sorry we said that, I would like to come back on the show. And John Barrowman's been making a huge stink about they need Captain Jack back for the 50th anniversary, so...
No, they don't. That's my prediction.
I already think they already have a Captain Jack type character with River Song. She's like a female Captain Jack.
They've already got
and
it.
I think having Captain Jack and River Song within the same story would end up being quite too much. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But I would hope for the 50th anniversary we get a season with lots of classic monsters returning, a season with lots of familiar faces returning. I would love to see I think a David Tennant and a 10th and 11th Doctor episode is a must. Whether they can do even more Doctors within it, Matt Smith has said his dream for the 50th is to bring back Tom Baker. And Stephen Moffat has created an out
Absolutely.
on this time differentiality or whatever, where
Time Crash has
when he
established
brings a past self, that past self will be at the age they should be so that's established that. That I think would be exciting. It would be nice to see the master back. There's lots of stuff they could do for the 50th anniversary. It's going to be a huge, thing for Doctor Who, and I can't see them not. And also, I would like to see for the 50th anniversary episode, I think it would be nice to see Omega as the villain. He was the villain of the 10th anniversary story. He was the villain of the 20th anniversary story. There wasn't a 30th or 40th anniversary. It wasn't in production at the time. I think Omega should be brought back for the 50th anniversary.
And do you think Omega should re-establish Gallifrey on a permanent basis?
Who knows? It's up to Stephen Moffat, whoever is in charge then. But I think Omega is a character that you could bring back for a modern audience without too much baggage involved. He's a renegade Time Lord that was trapped in a parallel dimension, and he's pissed.
Well, he's not just a renegade Time Lord.
Oh, he's the creator.
He created the Time Lords.
And considering they've brought back Rassilon with a line thrown out that sort of like every classic Who fan was going, yes, and everybody else in the audience was going, what? You could bring back Omega as the main villain for the 50th anniversary, and I think... Could
you go back to the Cartmel master plan and establish Rassilon, the Doctor, and Omega as the triumvirate?
Who knows?
And by the way, just to explain that, if Doctor Who hadn't been cancelled, there were ideas that the Doctor wasn't just a Time Lord, he was one of the original Time Lords, along with Rassilon and along with Omega.
My only issue with that is when the Doctor bumped into Omega in his third incarnation, he wouldn't say, I learnt about you as a kid in school, and I wish you are our greatest Time Lord. And he was like, I should have been a god. That's a bit... I know about retconning, but it has been established that the Doctor was at school learning about Omega and Rassilon.
It's Mother Who on Twitter says, I adore River Song, brilliant character, and I concur. You cannot have Captain Jack and River. Only one diva is allowed.
Yeah, it would just be unwatchable with the two of them, and I mean that in the politest way. But it's like, how much scenery is going to be left after they both chewed it all away?
And For Crinksy in Twitter adds, but the Doctor is the biggest diva of all.
Yes.
Okay, guys, we've got to move on. So the theme of the week is,
gods.
Speaking of Omega, of course, is gods, devils, mythological monsters. And
it's all to time with the release of the Demons.
The Demons has just come out on DVD.
Where is
it? You got it over there? And we'll be reviewing that one later. And we're also reviewing another god-devil type story.
The Impossible Planet.
The Impossible Planet.
In both of these, the Doctor meets what may be the devil or may be an alien.
So tweet us your favourite creature in the gods, devils, mythological creature pantheon from Doctor Who. But to kick it off, we're going to go over to Barry Aldridge, who'll give us the top 5 of his favourite in this category.
Hello everyone, this is Barry Aldridge here, and welcome to another Barry's Top 5 for Talking Who. Hooray, yeah. And this week, I'm here to talk about my top 5 favourite mythological monsters or gods as part of a celebration because The Demons was released on DVD this week. I'll give you a little bit of an extra at the end to tell you what I actually think about The Demons DVD because I've actually watched it all the way through in that. So yeah, this is also mythological creatures, gods, and that sort of stuff. So you're going to find out my top 5 right about now. Okay, at number 5 is in fact the Minotaur. Now the Minotaur has made a couple of appearances though in Doctor Who. A very, very short appearance though in The Mind Robber, around about episode 2 or 3 I think it was. And also it made an appearance though in The Time Monster, which... it was very, very unique. I've always been fascinated with the Minotaur being kind of like really, really tough in that. And also, yeah, it sort of appeared as the 9-1 sort of Minotaur thing in one of the 11th Doctor stories. I can't remember which one it was. Hopefully, Elisar and Sean will get that right for me or something like that. I may have got it wrong. But anyway, I kind of like the Minotaur sort of creature. It's very, very brutal and tough, like half human, half man sort of thing. Now, here's a little fact for you guys. With the one in the Time Monster, the person that played that was actually David Prowse, and you probably know who David Prowse was. Yes, Darth Vader. He was the one there that donned the Darth Vader outfit. I didn't know that until recently. It was kind of like really fascinating in that. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of like that sort of monster brute toughness in that. I really like the Minotaur, I have to admit. I preferred its appearance in the Time Monster than in... the Mind Robber, because the Mind Robber you never hardly saw it. You saw a couple of glimpse shots, but in the Time Monster it was brutish and tough, and it was working for Kronos, who gave it like the crystal sort of thing. So yeah, the Minotaur was pretty cool. At number 4, it is in fact the Scarison, or as we know as the Loch Ness Monster. Now this was a servant to the Zygons in the Terror of the Zygons. Now the Terror of the Zygons hasn't come out on DVD yet, but I remember the videotape release when I was a kid. And it looks like something though from a 1950s, 1960s B-movie, you know, the way it moves sort of thing. But I found it really fascinating. It really made the Zygons look quite threatening though. I mean, it is set in the Highlands of Scotland, although it was actually filmed though in West Sussex though, the story, I will admit. I will say that though for the record. But yeah, I found it really, really fascinating though, the Scarison or the Loch Ness Monster. So... I've always been fascinated with that as well, and as you know, there was cartoons like the Loch Ness Monster when I was a kid, but anyway, it don't really matter anyway. But yeah, I always liked the Loch Ness Monster. It was kind of like really cool. At number 3, strangely enough, it is one of the most popular monsters of Doctor Who, but some people say it's mythological as well. In a sort of an aspect, it is in fact the Yeti. Now the Yeti, I've only seen in a couple of episodes, which was the Abominable Snowman episode 2, and the Web of Fear episode 1, and of course, you know, some little archive clips of the Web of Fear as well. And I felt, yeah, they were very, very sort of tough. Although they did look kind of cuddly. I think that was another reason why I kind of rated them higher up. But as you know, yeah, if they were, I don't know, even if there was more footage of them, I would still probably put them as number 3. I mean, there was only a couple of episodes, but I absolutely loved the Yeti. And I agree with Terrence Dix on this one, that, you know, the roar of them sounds like a flushing toilet. But yeah, you know, the Yeti I kind of like as a mythological creature. I thought they were really quite cool. I thought it really was quite fantastic. At number 2, I've got to give it to Elisar from the Demons DVD, which I actually got here. Now, Elisar was proven quite tough, and he was played by a very, very good voice actor, Stephen Thorne, who also played Omega in The Three Doctors, and I think he had another part, Aldridge from the Hand of Fear. That's right, the man Aldridge that appeared in episode 4. I thought Elisar was something really interesting. He symbolized the devil himself, like someone who actually was really quite powerful. I mean, he could actually go to the master. He could actually kill someone with brief of lightning or something like that. I thought, Elisar was something really interesting. I thought Stephen Thorne as an actor was really quite good, and it made it really quite cool. Although they did try to do it again, though, in The Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit. I think that's where they got the idea. But I felt the original Demons one with Elisar was actually a lot better, because he was much more threatening. And I felt like the body split thing I thought was a bit confusing. But while it was still a great story, though, The Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit 2-parter. But I thought it was kind of like nice and neat sort of done. But yeah, Elisar is definitely my number 2 monster. At number 1, and this is one from one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time, it is in fact Sutekh from The Pyramids of Mars. The Pyramids of Mars I could talk about all day. It's one of my favourite stories of all time. And Sutekh was a villain there that the Doctor could not stop possibly, because he was so powerful. He was someone there that could brush off things and could actually kill someone with an instant and use them as a slave, mind slave, in an instant. That was what was so powerful about Sutekh. Sutekh made you really understand that, oh my god, he's a real threat here and that. And of course, what his actual face looked like, oh god, it was quite creepy actually. And it was actually really quite well done as well. And I think that was Stephen Thorne as well. No, Gabriel Wolfe. Gabriel Wolfe did the voice of that one. I thought Gabriel Wolfe gave a great performance. And in fact, though, he did the voices of the Demons thing in The Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit. Which is kind of unusual, isn't it? The top two have a sort of relevance to each other, but, in different ways. And before I go, though, ladies and gentlemen, I will give a quick summary of my review of The Demons. I have to say, this is one of the best Doctor Who releases ever. John Pertwee was on top form. Katie Manning did a great performance. Christopher Barry was a great director. Well done script, though, from Barry Letts and Robert Sloman under the pseudonym Guy Leopold and that. Really outstanding stuff. Really top performances. So it's there as well on there. And, of course, the Brigadier's famous 5 rounds rapid line. I thought that was quite fantastic. The documentaries on there are absolutely fantastic. Devil Rides Out, brilliant documentary looking into the highs of the Demons. The Devil Rides Out, which is really quite good. But for me, the standout documentary is the Remembering Barry Letts, which is definitely a watch through. If you like the Barry Letts era of Doctor Who, you get to know a bit more about his life story, and that not only from him but also his sons Dominic and Crispin and Terrence Dicks as well. Really thought that documentary, one of my favourite documentaries though ever. But definitely get the Demons DVD. It is absolutely fantastic. Definitely worth getting though, guys. And I will be back another time though with another top 5. Take care, guys.
There you go. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
So that was.
He's got did you say he's got 10,000 followers on Twitter?
Barry, do you want to confirm? I think it's about 10 on YouTube. It's harder to get followers on YouTube than it is on Twitter.
Yes.
So there's lots of comments in the YouTube chat room.
Yeah.
Jitesh Vora says, I would like to see the Rani
Mm-hmm.
and Paul McGann as a possibility too, he says, as well, for the 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Cannon, who from the Who's He podcast, who was one of our podcast panelists, says, please never speak of the Slitheen again. We don't want to give the production team ideas.
Is there any truth to the rumour that the Slitheen were named after Doctor Who superfan Ian Levine?
Slitheen? Oh, well, I don't know. Who knows? Is that just a rumour? Who knows? Phil Cannon also says, let's not forget the Omega symbol on the cleric's uniform in Series 6. And we still don't know who said silence will fall at the end of Series 5. Maybe there is something in the Omega rumour.
The only thing about the whole silence will fall thing is the silence will fall. Was it the fall of the 11th?
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily something for the 50th anniversary, but for when Matt Smith leaves as the Doc, which may coincide with the 50th anniversary.
Yep.
Because he would have been in the role for 4 years?
Yep.
Then, which would have made him the longest actor of seasons of new Doctor Who. I hadn't really actually realised that the clerics though had the Omega symbol on them. That's interesting.
So there is something there. Maybe there is something. Who knows? Who knows?
Okay, so
cool.
So talking of gods, it's actually now become a bit of a cliche in science fiction, but it first started with Quatermass and the Pit, and then moved on to films such as
Quatermass and Pit, the movie,
and also films such as 2001, and then it became a very popular theme within Star Trek and Doctor Who, the idea of God or the demon as an alien.
And of course, let's not forget Marvel's Secret Wars.
Oh yes. But you meet, an alien comes down to whether it's human culture or another alien culture, and is so technologically advanced that technological advancement is seen as godlike powers.
And in fact, of course, this summer we have the Ridley Scott film Prometheus, which is very much Chariot of the Gods.
It's, yes, of course, the whole Von Daniken thing, but I always think that Von Daniken watched Quatermass in the Pit. So
we're going to review The Impossible Planet, which is a story from
David Tennant's first season as the Doctor.
Indeed, second
Billy Piper.
or Doctor Who's second season or 29th, I suppose.
Yeah. So do we have a clip?
We do indeed. So here's this is the coming soon for The Impossible Planet.
When Beltane is come, tread softly. For lo, the prince himself is nigh.
Devil's End.
Okay,
Very
Gone beyond the reach of the TARDIS's knowledge, not a good move.
Entering night shift.
This writing is old. Impossibly old.
People, look at that, real people.
That's us. Hooray!
The beast and his armies shall rise from the pit.
Whatever is down there is not a natural phenomenon.
We could revolutionize modern science.
We could use it to fuel the Empire. Or start a war.
That's a black hole.
But that's impossible. Gone beyond the reach of the TARDIS's knowledge, not a good move.
Entering night shift.
This writing is old. Impossibly old.
People, look at that, real people.
That's us. Hooray!
The beast and his armies shall rise from the pit.
Whatever is down there is not a natural phenomenon.
We could revolutionize modern science.
We could use it to fuel the Empire. Or start a war.
That's a black hole.
But that's impossible.
Okay, we just actually played that clip twice because obviously we'd pressed the wrong clip, and then we had a crash, and some of you might have had to reload your browsers.
This is what happens when you're doing stuff live.
Indeed. So anyway, hopefully we're back. Hopefully,
Impossible Planet.
Hopefully, you're all watching us now still. So, Doctor Who: The Impossible Planet, starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor
and Billy Piper.
Billy Piper as Rose Tyler. A two-part story.
Yes. I actually felt this story, when I saw it, it was actually, for the first time in New Who, after 2 seasons, a real return to basics of what classic Doctor Who was about.
Yeah.
The base Under Siege storyline, which was kind of like the meat and potatoes of Doctor Who, since probably the episode Moonbase, the Patrick Troughton one, the whole idea of a base under siege from an alien menace or an external menace. And this was a great little 2-parter with special effects and the sets. The whole thing looked fantastic. It was sort of like one of the best looking episodes.
Of course, it introduced the Ood.
Yes.
In a sort of almost Robots of Death style.
Actually, I felt the whole Ood in this, less so when they returned, but in this, I felt the Ood almost were like the characters in the Robots of Death.
Yeah.
They fulfill very much the same function, except from the Robots of Death, the Vox and the Super Vox were mechanical, and in this, the Ood are an organic slave race. If I did have an issue with it, it felt like if this had been in classic Doctor Who, it would have been a 4-part story.
Yeah.
And I felt in this one, episode 1 felt like a first episode of a four-part story stretched over 44 minutes.
Right.
And then the final episode felt like the final episode of a four-part story stretched over 44 minutes. It also did feel a bit weird. Normally in Classic Who, he would land on wherever it is, the sand miner, or wherever it is, this base under siege, and initially you'd have an episode where the crew thinks the Doctor is the bad guy,
yeah.
and the Doctor has to convince these people that he can be trusted and he's the one who can save them in this situation.
In fact, they accept him quite quickly.
Where in this they accepted this person's appeared on their base, and they kind of like there's very few questions about it.
And of course, it's not just a base; it's an impossible base.
Yes,
because it's in a base that they put on a planet which shouldn't physically exist.
It's within the event horizon of a black hole and should not be able to be
Yet
there.
He appears and they accept it without wanting to inspect his ship or anything that would seem to somehow break the rules of why they're there in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it's even, let alone he turns up and all these terrible occurrences start happening, it's even the fact he's not accused of industrial espionage or something like that, and I felt that was something that was a bit missing from it. On the other hand, I felt some of the horror set pieces are done brilliantly, especially in the first episode with the whole runes appearing on
Toby.
Yes, and when he can hear this voice in his head of something behind him telling him not to look around, and it's a very very effectively done sequence.
And of course, the Ood are done very, very well because you're introducing a character. I mean, we don't know what the Ood are going to be like at this stage. For us, they just look like
they look like something
creepy
out of
creatures.
H.P. Lovecraft.
They are based on a Cthulhu style, absolutely H.P. Lovecraft creature with the tentacles and things. So the assumption, of course, that these are going to be bad creatures because they look evil.
Yeah,
they look horrible. But of course, it turns out, of course, that their minds are being controlled and they're being used. And actually, at the very end of this two-part story, when the Doctor condemns the Ood to die because he'd rather save one human rather than all the Ood, it's really touching because the look of fear on their faces, and suddenly you get a sense of the real Ood. And of course, which then establishes them quite nicely for when they do come back in Planet of the Ood.
Some interesting facts on this story. Gabrielle Wolfe, who does the voice, this mysterious voice you hear throughout it, was actually the voice of Sutekh in the Pyramids of Mars.
Let's put that into context for those fans who might not know the Pyramids of Mars.
Yeah.
So the voice of the demon in this story is voiced by the same actor
who voiced Sutekh,
who pretty much plays kind of the same character
in a similar situation.
In a similar situation.
And well, actually, in the scripting stages of this story, it was discussed about making the devil either Sutekh or the Master. That was actually for a long while. It was, and Russell T Davies even said at a certain point, if fans want to consider that, classic fans want to consider the possibility that this is an Osiren or Sutekh who was trapped.
I think this is quite an interesting idea because you do get a sense, because of the way the Doctor explains what this creature could be and what its influences are.
Yes.
You get a sense that actually Sutekh from the Tom Baker story Pyramids of Mars and the creature in the Satan pit could actually be the same race.
Yeah.
Or maybe even parts of the same mind.
Yeah.
Or something, because who knows what this creature is. He's a creature that exists as a fear, kind of almost like a psychic monster, and maybe these are just bodies, and the Sutekh in Pyramids of Mars is one, and the Satan in Satan Pit is the other. Could be the same thing, or just maybe the same race, but it's a very old race that goes back to the prehistory of time. So it is an interesting story. Yeah, I kind of agree with you with the pacing.
The only thing that I would put, if you watch it as two separate episodes with a week between them, they're fine.
Yeah.
But if you watch it together, the pacing's very, very off in this, especially compared to when you watch a 4-part Classic Who story as a movie. They kind of work. This doesn't work when the two of them are put together. The pacing's very off in it. That's the only real criticism I can give on it. I think it's a very good story. I love the whole whenever they do it, like even last season they did it with the gangers. I love the base under siege storyline.
The other thing that is a bit strange, of course, is in the second part of the story, is actually the Doctor is just missing from a huge chunk of the story.
And we also have established in this, Russell T Davies playing with us, the audience knew that Billie Piper was going to leave at the end of the series. And the devil or whatever it is predicts she will die.
Yes.
So suddenly the audience is believing for the rest of the series that Billie Piper, which she doesn't, but Russell T Davies very cleverly messes with our minds a bit.
Although I'm sure officially on government paperwork in our universe,
oh yes,
Rose Tyler is essentially dead because she's missing, presumed dead because she's in another dimension, which of course won't turn up on any paperwork. But yeah, the Doctor does go missing because he obviously goes down into the Satan pit in the of the title. But then you have this very strange pacing again, where everything is very frantic, scary on the base, as the Ood are basically becoming killers.
Yes. And it always becomes a bit like Aliens, where they're going through
lots of corridors. You don't know who's going to survive.
Shafts, the whole lot.
And then suddenly you cut to the Doctor scene, and it suddenly just the pace just slows right down, and all that sort of franticness has just disappeared completely, and you've just got the Doctor sort of going down a wire further into the pit, just pontificating. And it does make it quite strange because you kind of you do feel he's missing from all those chase scenes. It's like, where is the Doctor? Why isn't he here? The actual creature himself, do you disappointed in the look of it? The CGI?
I mean, it looks good, but at the same time, it never ever seems to pose a threat.
It doesn't pose a threat, no.
And also, I think it's just too large, and the way the CGI is done, you almost know as soon as you see it that it's not going to interact with David Tennant.
Yeah.
And I always think that was a bit... And oddly enough, just sitting there on a throne but unable to move, Sutek came across as more of a threat waiting to explode and cause all kinds of problems than this does.
Yeah.
And I think also one of the problems here is once you see the monster, it's just... And of course, because its intelligence it's just a mindless beast.
Yes.
What confronts the 10th Doctor. So it never feels like any form of threat. The 10th Doctor never feels like he's in any threat. The threat to the 10th Doctor is how does he get out of this pit and back to his TARDIS. That's what the issue he has.
Yes.
Not having to deal with this monster.
And of course, and in another echo really of the Tom Baker story, Pyramids of Mars, he's actually been left with almost like a riddle in how to actually stop the monster. What is the answer? How do you stop him? You know, is what he discovers just a lie? And again, if you haven't seen Pyramids of Mars,
which you should,
it is one of those classic Doctor Who stories I would definitely recommend to any new fan, because especially if you watch this story, you'll see so many parallels. And in fact, with the theme of what we're discussing this week, we could easily have actually included it as a review if of course we didn't have the Demons to review.
So this one, I think this is a good story. I'd say it's just lacking that extra spark to make it a classic. It's a good, solid story.
It is a good, solid story. It's definitely an enjoyable one. One slightly ruined for me by I got quite annoyed, and I say this every time we review Rose, but there's a sort of build-up of Rose Tyler getting more and more annoying as this season progresses, and she gets quite... Billie Piper's acting ability is quite limited, and to have her...
Ooh, and there was me getting into trouble because I said that Joe Grant was useless.
To have her suddenly take over as I can be captain of this crew.
She's been learning off the Doctor.
It didn't strike as being realistic or real for her character, but it is good. The other cast is great. Lenny James is always brilliant. I think in anything he does, he's a great actor. He plays the acting captain of the crew here. The guy, I can't remember the actor's name, who plays the security officer.
I can't remember any of the cast
But again, it's sort of they're just both sort of, especially that security officer, sort of very almost classic Who type of character, you know, on a base. The Ood, fantastic job. Idea is great, and the concept of the story is great. The atmosphere, the feeling you get in it is great. Very claustrophobic, and it does go back. Has lots of parallels to classic Who stories, so it's definitely check it out.
So now moving on to classic Who.
Well, first we've got our podcast review of the week, which is from It's Mother Who. It's Mother Who is doing our regular slot reviewing those Doctor Who podcasts that you might be listening to already, or you might want to because of the reviews. So this is It's Mother Who's review of the Oodcast.
First, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's treated me to say how much they enjoyed my last review. Considering my editing suite wasn't working and how terrified I was, I'm really, really grateful that people have said they liked it. Thank you. Anyway, enough about me. This month I've been listening to the Oodcast podcast. I've been thoroughly enjoying the researching I've been doing, so you don't have to. The Oodcast has 4 wonderful presenters: Andrew, Chris Alpha, Chris Sigma and Laura. I think it's safe for me to say that although all 4 are staunch fans of Who, the 3 chaps are experts on classic Who, with Laura being a huge fan of New Who, and not such a big fan of the classic. And she doesn't mind admitting that she finds classic Who a tad boring. I love this, as I sometimes find that podcasts alienate fans who know little of classic Who. Mentioning actors and writers from classic Who without explaining can be a real turn-off for some of Who's younger fans, and let's be honest, without this new breed of Whovians, Doctor Who may not be the massive show that it is today. The Oodcast is a monthly podcast, although when Who is broadcasting on the telly box, they produce a fortnightly show. The episodes I've listened to over the past week or 2 were all reviewing episodes of Series 6. The show comprises of skits of the episode they're reviewing, with some fantastic impersonations of our favourite Who characters. It also has some excellent sketches, which really did have me belly laughing, and some wonderfully written songs. Having listened to a few different podcasts, I think so far the Oodcast for me is the most accessible. I don't think you need to be a staunch Whovian who knows the name of the actor who played Tom Baker's Scarf to enjoy this podcast. The way it is pitched is brilliant. It's so wonderfully written and the humour is fantastic. I've listened with my 14-year-old daughter and my 8-year-old son, and both enjoy different bits of it equally. That's not to say that the presenters don't know their stuff, they most definitely do. However, because the Oodcast is so well thought out, and because of the sketches and the humour, I would even go so far to say that even someone who had recently joined the Whovian fanship and had maybe only watched 1 or 2 episodes would get pleasure from this and understand it. The Oodcast has quite a big fan base, which are lovingly known as the Commodity, and I asked them to tweet me a 3-word review of the show. Here are some of the replies. So if you've never listened to the Oodcast before, I would recommend downloading the 50th episode anniversary special from iTunes, which has a fine selection of their best bits. It's hard for me to believe that the presenters on this cast do this in their spare time and still manage to have any sort of a life outside of the Oodcast. It must take hours to write and edit the sketches, but this time taken is very well spent, because what the listeners get is a highly professional written and edited show, and I'm quite aghast that this little nugget of Whovian loveliness hasn't been picked up by some astute broadcaster somewhere. The Oodcast gets a massive thumbs up from Mother Who.
Great, thank you, It's Mother Who. You can follow her on Twitter at It's Mother Who.
Okay.
Just went out of focus this then.
Now, moving on to classic Who now, and this whole gods and gods are aliens or aliens are devils. Now, There was a couple of stories we could have looked at. We could have looked at Pyramids of Mars.
Pyramids of Mars.
With Sutek.
Yeah.
Greatest Show in the Galaxy with the gods of Ragnarok.
The Curse of Fenric.
Curse of Fenric with the Norse gods, Fenric gods. Or even something like the Horns of Nimon, in which you've got aliens not on Earth but on another planet.
We've reviewed
I'm just sort of giving examples.
Yeah, no, sure.
The Horns of Nimon is an example of not where it's gods pretending to be aliens to humans, but on another planet.
And the John Pertwee story set on Atlantis.
Oh yes, of course. But the Daemons is actually probably
Daemons or Demons.
The Demons, yeah.
Daemons
is probably the first Doctor Who story to actually cover the whole gods are monsters, gods are aliens concept. Hadn't really been done before on Doctor Who, and this was the first time. And it was one of several stories in John Pertwee's era which you could really tell they had lifted it from Quatermass.
Yeah.
This is very much almost a remake of Quatermass in the Pit.
Starting off, of course, with an archaeological dig.
Yes. Very interesting enough, at the end of Patrick Troughton's run, before they had the idea of regenerating him again, and they were talking about cancelling Doctor Who when Patrick Troughton wouldn't renew his contract, they were talking about bringing Quatermass back for a series. And I always felt that if you looked at season 7, John Pertwee's first season, I felt you could have taken any of the stories and replaced John Pertwee's Third Doctor with Quatermass, and Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart with Colonel Breen from Quatermass in the Pit, and any of those stories would have fit into a Quatermass mould. And of course, Spearhead from Space is very much a remake of Quatermass 2, and this one is very much a remake of Quatermass in the Pit. It's probably one of the most highly regarded John Pertwee stories. And I think it's probably the most typical. It has all the elements. There's certain elements people associate with John Pertwee stories, but they're not in every episode. You associate Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. You expect him to be there. You expect Unit to be there with Mike Yates and Sergeant Benton. You expect Bessie to be in there. You expect Joe Grant to be a part of it. You expect Roger Delgado as the Master. And you expect this whole kind of quaint English village kind of thing, and this feeling almost like you get on an ITC show like The Persuaders or The Avengers, and a lot of karate kung fu action. And for that reason, it's probably one of the most regarded John Pertwee stories. I'm gonna put myself out on a limb here, and I think it's a horribly average story. I don't know why it's given such regard. That's probably but I think there are better John Pertwee stories. I think there's much better other stories out there, and I think much of its fame comes less to do with it being a good story, but just the production team had a good time making it, and Barry Letts and John Pertwee, people like that always say, this is our favourite story. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, okay, I never had the VHS of this one.
Yeah.
So this, for me, this DVD was actually a first time.
Oh my God, and you're a fan?
Yeah. So, because the VHS was one of those, there were a handful of those sort of VHSs which just became very rare very, very quickly.
Yes, this was one of them.
And this was definitely one of them.
And ended up being on eBay for like £200 or £300.
Yeah, and I just wasn't prepared to spend that kind of money just to watch it. You know, I think Mask of Mandragora was another one that just sort of disappeared.
Oh, right.
Very quickly.
That's a story that's not viewed as a classic, and I think it's much better than this.
Yeah, and Demons just it was just impossible to get the VHS. So if you did have one, you were very, very, very lucky. So I never got to see this one. I didn't see the repeat in the 1990s, which T. Chalky just reminded us did actually happen.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
On BBC Two. So yeah, it was first time for me, and I really, really liked it. It's 5 episodes long, and John Pertwee's were either 4 episodes or 6 episodes. Yes. So this broke that mould. 5 episodes was probably just about right. I think if they had done 6 episodes, it would have really suffered. But I think it just about gets away with 5 episodes.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, you were talking about saying Quatermass. To me, it had sort of almost Hammer horror feel.
Oh, it's very much, yes. It's very much like, you know, the script. You could have taken that script, removed references to the Doctor being a Time Lord or the Master being Time Lord, just made him like a unit scientist, and Absolutely. The Master is this power mad scientist, and Hammer Horror could have taken it and remade it beat for beat.
I mean, there's no TARDIS in the story.
Yes.
It's set in a quaint English village, which actually looks very much like the sort of village that Amy comes from, Ledworth.
Oh, it looks very much like the village where you expect John Peel and Emma Peel and John Steed to be walking down in one of those. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't there. Actually, no, it wasn't the set, but there was one village they always used for the events. But it very much felt like that kind of.
So the setting is great. You do start with archaeological dig. Should they do it? Shouldn't they do it? There's always that question. Are you trespassing where you shouldn't be going? There is that chariot of the gods element. It's like, what do these cave paintings mean? I
felt, I don't know about you, I felt that Azael,
the creature,
the lead demon, he's not very charismatic. I felt, it was up to the master, basically. Roger Delgado.
Roger Delgado is just absolutely fantastic.
But he's fantastic in anything he does. And for me, nobody will ever touch him as the master, and he was it was such a shame that he died when he did, but
he's got a great outfit in this one because he has to do in order to conjure the alien Satan, he's got to do a certain ceremony, which looks like they're doing a black magic supernatural thing. So he has this amazing robes, which he looks fantastic in.
There's also what I did like though was the nice debate about science versus supernatural throughout this, and very much the Doctor establishes there's no such thing as magic, there's no such thing as the supernatural. What there is science that hasn't been explained yet, which very much goes why an alien race would be mistaken by primitive humans as godlike.
Yeah.
And even why now somebody like the Master could give locals the appearance he's a sorcerer by just using his extreme technological experience, knowledge and scientific experience.
Azul, he doesn't. I mean, the creature in this, you don't get a sense he's necessarily.
Somebody's just pointed out, the writer doesn't exist. Guy Leopold is actually Robert Sloman and Barry Letts, and also this episode was directed by Barry Letts, and as producer of the show, Barry Letts couldn't get a credit. He also was involved on the writing, I believe, of The Green Death and Planet of the Spiders. So
I do think it's strange that on Two Entertain's cover they do actually put Guy Leopold here.
No, they have to. They have to put the writer that's credited on the episode, even though it's a bit like.
Even though they include a documentary saying he doesn't exist.
Yes, but there's a big sticker on the City of Death, written by Douglas Adams, and you turn it over and it says by Doug Agnew. It's like they have to credit on this. It's like Pyramids of Mars is credited to whoever, and it was written by Robert Holmes.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Brain of Morbius says Robert Sloman, and it was written by Terence Dix and rewritten by Robert Holmes. So this happens, but I don't know. I mean, for me, it's an average story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I didn't like it. It's not that I didn't think it was a good story, but it's built up as this classic story, and I just don't think it's a classic story. And I can name about God knows how many other John Pertwee stories, like Day of the Daleks, or Spearhead from Space, or The Three Doctors, or the Monster of the Curse of Peladon, the first Peladon story, which I think are miles better than this story. And I can just name probably about off the top of my head about 20 to 30 other classic Doctor Who stories, even before I get into New Who, which I prefer to this. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. That doesn't mean I don't like it. It just has this reputation as one of the, up there with Caves of Androzani and Robots of Death, which I find a bit ridiculous.
I think if you like the John Pertwee era,
no, I just think
the great thing about this particular story is that you get to see. For a start, they're away from units, which is not necessarily a unique thing. But, for instance, the characters like Captain Mike Yates and Sergeant Benton, they have a great run in this particular story. You get to see them do a bit more, and so you not necessarily learn a bit more about them, but you just get to enjoy more of those characters.
Oh, but that doesn't make it, but I do feel sometimes that with Classic Who, there was this period of about 20 years where you couldn't get access to the episodes, and certain fans that had bootlegged episodes that would have vague memories when they watched it as a kid, and what we really had was the target novelizations. And I just think that there are certain stories like this and the Silurians which had a really actual cracking target novelization, so we ended up viewing it as more of a classic down to the target novelization. But I just think it's a fun, average story. There's nothing that special in it to me. The only thing which rises above the ordinary is any story. I'm a big fan. I'm always going to put my hand up and say Roger Delgado. And to this day, they have not been able to cast anybody that comes even close to what he brought.
The Doctor 01 is the Ho asks, who is better, Delgado or Sim as the Master?
Delgado. Without, I don't even have to think about that. I mean, I actually thought Sim gave a dreadful performance. I hated him as the Master.
The Doctor Who media says, not seen Delgado yet in my marathon, but Sim is a great opposite to Tennant. Still got a lot of classic to watch.
Oh my God, Delgado for me is almost that brilliant villain in which he's totally evil, but at the same time you just can't help but like him, and you know in his own head, the Master's own head, he thinks what he's doing is totally right. He's like, well, you know, it's just completely logical. He's more intelligent than humans.
Sure.
He's the greatest mind on the planet. Gallifreyans are superior, so he can't understand why people don't seem to think he should just take over the world and the galaxy. And I would always love the fact that there was that thing like you get with Professor X or Magneto, or, you know, with great, you know, Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, where you feel any other circumstances they'd be friends.
Yeah.
And you can always see that between the Third Doctor and the Master, that they genuinely and openly kind of like each other.
Yeah.
There again, and I love the way that Delgado would almost seem kind of confused by the Third Doctor, and why aren't you helping me? Why can't you see that what I'm doing is that? And several times in the stories, and I quite like that, he would offer the Doctor a share in his power, and the Doctor would always turn it down, of course, because the Doctor was, you know, such a moral person. But I just thought, whereas John Sim was just this hyperactive, over the top, and it kind of got on my nerves a bit. So,
well, I suppose
Derek Jacobi is the only one for me, and he only had one episode, unfortunately. But he
only had one scene as a Master.
But he's still very good in it. He had that kind of subtlety.
Yeah.
That is actually what Delgado had, which Peter Pratt as the kind of like the reformed Master, and Derek Jacobi alluded to as well, but which Anthony Ainley and John Sim were completely missing, is that subtlety. Very, very subtle, and it just, you know, the Master was so polite, so likeable, yet ultimately so evil.
Yeah.
And I just think that was just wonderful in Delgado's performance.
Phil Cannon adds, since Delgado, the actors playing the Master have been fine. It's just the way they've been told to portray him by successive producers is the problem.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, John Sim, if you watch Life on Mars,
he's a great actor.
Watch Mad Dogs.
Absolutely.
I've seen him in theatre.
It's the way it was written,
and that was written by Russell T Davies that way. And I also think Anthony Ainley, if you watch it, he was very much moustache curling, I am evil kind of thing, which was a bit annoying, but that was what they were given in terms of their writing. And I'm not having a go at the actors, but Delgado for me, even more so, everybody's got a favourite Doctor or whatever, but you know, I've got my favourite Doctors, but I can still see what all of the others brought to it. For me, there's only one Master, that's Roger Delgado.
And I think for those who haven't yet watched Roger Delgado as a Master, there's no reason why you won't enjoy them, because actually a lot of those stories are really good.
But here's what elevates all those stories. And
the Sea Devils, you'll just love the Sea Devils.
There's a fantastic sword fighting scene in that, which is just, and it's so obviously padding, but it's just actually the highlight of the story. And that's another good thing of the Daemons, is very much like all John Pertwee stories, there's a lot of action in it. There's a lot of firing of guns and unit soldiers jumping around, and the Doctor walking up to people going, "Hi!" and they just drop to the ground immediately. And
indeed, you get to see a lot of good unit stuff here.
Yeah.
There's in the story, the town is cut off by this heat barrier.
Yes.
And whenever they're near the heat barrier edge, you get this really annoying white noise buzzing.
Yes.
Which almost sounds as if something's wrong with the microphones when they're recording outside, because somehow it just sounds like they've just caught all the wind noise. I think they've actually tried to reduce it slightly in the DVD from the previous releases on VHS and the broadcast, because I think a lot of people do think it's really quite irritating.
Is there not a Unit family documentary? I was a bit surprised there wasn't a Unit family documentary.
No, so the DVD extras. Well, there's two on here which are the must-views, which is
Devil Rides
Devil Rides Out, which is like the making of, which Barry Aldridge was talking about earlier, during the top 5, and he also talked about the Remembering Barry Letts documentary, which is a really lovely documentary for those classic fans who know more about this era, who've watched.
Barry Letts, out of all the producers, was probably the producer which in many ways had the strongest association with Doctor Who.
I mean, he's an interesting, because obviously the Barry Letts was an actor who took the BBC's director training scheme and then became a director for the BBC.
And he really wanted to be a director, but they moved him on to being a producer.
And suddenly he was just given this job. You are going to be the producer of Doctor Who, which he took on. But he just... And he does an amazing job.
Five-year period of him and Terence Dix working on the show, and they went on to produce other shows together. Such as, what was it? Moon.
It was a lot of sort of
Moonbase. Well, no, they did Moonbase 3, whatever it was, and then they did the classic series, which they produced together, which was Sunday afternoon adaptations of
famous novels, British novels,
done for a family audience. Yeah. And Elizabeth Sladen was in their adaptation of Gulliver's Travels, and they did Oliver Twist and a lot of other classic. The Invisible Man. They cast Tom Baker as Sherlock Holmes in The Hound of the Baskervilles, and but their tenure on Doctor Who, they had a 5-year tenure of Doctor Who, and then Barry Letts still came back a few times as director on the show. He directed Android's Invasion, and then
which is set in another sleepy town.
And then for Tom Baker's final season, John Nathan Turner took over as producer, but it was felt he hadn't had enough experience, so Barry Letts was brought back, and Barry Letts was executive producer for the final season of Tom Baker's period on Doctor Who, and he always maintained a lot of passion for the show and a lot of love for the show, and his autobiography was released not long before he died, and which had a foreword by Tom Baker. And he also was a devout Buddhist, and a lot of his Buddhist philosophies and beliefs actually came to be seen on the show. And he was also a firm believer in the ecology. And this was before the green movement and any of that became trendy. And he was the one who really championed that with stories like The Green Death and so much, where they're dealing with the ecology. And I always found a very interesting point was to show how he viewed a lot more moral stance in Doctor Who was at the end of the Silurians, when the Brigadier blows up the Silurians, the Doctor turns round in the script and says, think of all the science that we lost. And Barry Letts said that's wrong. And he changed it to something like a whole civilization, and then he just walks off in disgust. And changing the Doctor from this kind of just this scientist type to actually a more moral kind of character as well.
Yeah, no, it's worth it. Yeah, some good extras there. Also, they've got things like the colorization tests, because
that's the other thing to mention. This is one of a story that
only existed in black and white.
No, episode 4. They had the original episode 4, which sticks out like a sore thumb, I've got to say though. But the episode 4, and they had episode 1, 2, 3, and 5 only available as black and white film prints. But Doctor Who superfan Ian Levine, who may also have been had the Slovene named after him, Doctor Who superfan Ian Levine had a friend take those episodes off American television when it aired on American TV. And they've taken his off-air copies and melded the colour.
Yes, they had a reference.
Using this very extreme computer software. They also did it with the Silurians as well, and Terror of the Autons. Probably Terror of the Autons is the best looking of them all. It's not entirely 100% there, but it's about sort of like 85% there, so it looks good. To be honest, when you watch the first 3 episodes, you'll end up not noticing it's recoloured.
You don't.
You really won't, until suddenly episode 4 airs, and that's so perfect. Suddenly it sticks out like a sore thumb. So, but it's still, this is as good as it's ever going to get, and a lot of work has been put into making this look good. So, you know, Doctor Who over any other series is so lucky it's got the restoration team, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but who knows, maybe it will be going down the number of missing episodes soon.
Well, let's hope so.
So there's still, what is it, 106?
106 still missing.
Yes. 2 recently recovered, so could be some more soon, hopefully. Fingers crossed, arms crossed.
The Doctor 01 is in the Ho. Oh, I suppose that means is in the house. I think it's just cut off on the YouTube.
In the Ho? That sounds a bit rude, actually.
Asked, what do you think about the unveiling of the new Doctor Who companion? We did actually discuss at the top of the show. So when we go off air and the show is then available on YouTube, you'll be able to watch.
She's cute. She's got acting experience. They say that she's got a lot of charisma and can hold her own against Matt Smith. She does look like she's been on the tanning bed a bit too long. I thought she'd been tangoed when I first Googled her. But, you know, I've never seen... I'll be watching Titanic this weekend. So I'm looking for... Funny thing is, as soon as she was announced, I hope you all know about the 11th Hour, a convention that I am running in June. If you don't know anything about it, go to www.starfury.co.uk.
Well, should we just give a quick rundown about what it is and who's going to be there?
Okay.
Yep.
It's a 3-day Doctor Who convention. But it's not a Doctor Who convention. It's an 11th Doctor convention, celebrating Matt Smith's tenure as the Doctor. Matt Smith will be at the event, giving a guest talk, photo sessions, and an autograph session. An opportunity to get to meet him, get an autograph of him, get a photo with him. We've also just signed up Frances Barber, who plays Madame Kavorian, the eye patch lady. We also have Mark Shepherd. I can't even remember his character's name.
Canton, Delaware.
Delaware Canton, the FBI agent in The Impossible Astronaut. We have his father, Morgan Shepherd, who played him, Delaware, as an older version. We've got Simon Fisher-Becker.
Yep, Dorium.
He'll
be the whole of him, not just his head.
We've got Catherine Stewart and Neve, can't remember her name at the moment, the Silurian and her Victorian girlfriend, Madame Vastra.
Madame Vastra and her maid, Jenny.
Girlfriend.
That would be breaking, employment laws.
And we've got those coming along as well. Guest talks from them, autograph sessions from them over the weekend. We also have Jim Swallow, author of Big Finish Adventures and many of the novelisations, and Tony Lee, who writes the comic books. There'll be guest talks over the weekend, parties every night, cosplay competitions, quizzes, prizes, autographs with all the guests, meet and greet with the guests. It's going to be a great weekend.
And I think, hopefully, a live Oodcast stage show as well.
And I did have lots of tweets and email today. Straight away, this new companion's announced, is she going to be at the 11th hour? I'll make an official statement about that now. No, she won't be at the 11th hour. Reason she won't be, none of her episodes will have aired. She'll have barely been filming any, but none of her episodes have aired. So what's she going to talk about on stage without giving spoilers or annoying people? Yeah. I'm sure the BBC would very much frown on her doing a convention such as this before her episodes had aired. And on top of that, I've often found when you have an actor and their stuff hasn't been seen properly, there just isn't the interest for photos and autographs.
Yeah.
So for her, she's somebody to bring in 2013 if she's open to doing one. Definitely would love to have her along for one, but not this year for the 11th hour. I am at the moment, have offers out on 3 more guests. One of them is a big name. They've been telling me from January, we'll let you know soon. People were tweeting you, when will you announce the next guest? All I can say is when they agree. So, but the 11th hour...
When they've got their pen on that piece of paper that says they're there.
You know, you don't want me to tell you I'm in negotiations with somebody and then those negotiations fall apart. However, that event 15th, 16th, 17th of June, and you can find the details at www.starfury.co.uk. The 11th hour.
T. Chalky wants to organise a Doctor Who charades game. For
I
fans.
think he emailed me that about that, and that sounded like a cool idea. I believe I got the email about that this morning or yesterday morning.
Okay, cool.
And I think he called it Doctor Raids or something like it. Charades.
Doctionary.
Doctionary. Yes, and I think that sounds. I'm always after new content for an event, and that sounds like fun. That does. So that's definitely something we can.
And of course, something fans can get involved with themselves.
Yes.
So cool. Well, thank you guys. Just looking at the diary, I'm probably thinking April 18th.
That's my birthday.
Is it your birthday? Okay,
yeah.
Well, maybe not then. Maybe April 25th.
Okay.
April 25th.
I'll be drunk on the floor on the 18th.
April 25th will be the next Talking Who. So please come and join us next month. We'll have we'll have to think of a theme. So maybe you want to tweet us a theme. Something that we can then pick a classic story, match it with a more recent story. Guys, it's been great. Obviously, it's been a really interesting day today because of the news of the new companion.
Yes.
And news of obviously when we'll be seeing those episodes. It does mean that we're going to have to be waiting quite late, I think, into the year before we'll actually get.
We'll still be doing a Talking Who at least once a month. There's video releases. There's new news like this. Maybe we should be looking at Big Finish audios, stuff like that. As soon as we can find ourselves some new studios, proper studio settings like we used to have at the library, we can start looking at having guests back on the show. Because there's been about 2 or 3 actors who said they'd like to come on the show.
Yeah.
But we can't do anything with them just at the moment. But it'd be nice to, a couple of fun people who we can get on board here. A couple of the actors, a couple of the writers, people.
Yeah.
We're just not in the environment for it at the moment.
Anyway, guys, it's been great. Thanks for all your comments. Do subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Those Video Guys TV. Very important. And also keep writing comments in and tweeting, telling your friends. Let the world know. It's important to just sort of spread the word, really.
Yes.
Spread the word. So things like Gallifrey 1 in Los Angeles, when they do
thing on podcasts, panel, they say nobody's doing a live feed.
Exactly. When they say no one's doing live streaming, you can just correct them, say, yes, they are.
Yeah, you should say, no, what you should actually correct them is, yes, they are, and you need them as guests at this convention.
Exactly.
I've never done Gallifrey. I hear it's nuts. And nuts in a good way.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it would be, yeah.
Nuts, and I would really like to go. I think they get like about 3,000-4,000 people at it.
Incredible. Well, thanks a lot, and we'll see you in April.
Take care, guys.
Cheers, bye.